maybe if we start, Andreas, I would fully agree with your optimism that actually, the industry has achieved an amazing outcome over the last couple of years, and we really made it from a niche to the mainstream in power generation, at least. So one thing that we certainly need in order to go forward, while we have a very well-established role now, one thing which we need going forward is, of course, we need a healthy OEM landscape, and therefore one thing that kind of struck me when you said the shift to auctions for renewables damaged the sector, and maybe can you explain a bit what you mean by that and in what way it has damaged the sector?
Thanks, Samuel. And first, let me say, of course, the introduction of auctions everywhere in the world was a good thing, because we need to drive down the cost for renewables and for wind. That was fine. What I find only that we overdid it. If you look like, let's say, a country like India, and there you can nicely see the world in a nutshell. India drove down the auction prices for onshore wind to an unsustainable level. The results of that is that more or less every Indian domestic supplier is either bankrupt, close to bankruptcy, or you have to shut down half of your establishment there, which is in our case, the result of it is simply unsustainable. And what people then try to do is you try to volume your way out of that. And that simply was also not the way out, because sooner or later these super low auction prices catch up with you. And then neither the OEM nor the developer nor anyone in the whole chain makes the profit he wants, she wants. And then it's going too far. That is at least my observation.
Okay, that's an interesting point you mentioned, because you mentioned there's a whole chain from developer to OEM to the long-term holders of the asset, and that was actually my follow-up question. Is nobody making money in these situations, or is it that over the whole chain there is somebody making money, but it's a question of maybe negotiation power between the different parts in the game, from developer to OEM to long-term operator and so on? What is your take on that?
I think, yes, overall in the chain still there's money to be made, but simply the cake that is there is much smaller, and everybody is fighting in his part of the value chain to keep as much of the cake. And you know that from your current position. And everybody tries to the next level to use competition again. You do that to the OEMs, we do that to the next level in the supply chain. And this simply forces, on the one hand, it forces competition, which is good. It brings innovation and cost down. But if you do that on a much smaller cake, I believe there's also an end to that. And that is where I think need to also to change how we work together, because that we can continue, but this will not stay healthy, neither for you, nor for us, nor for the next level people.
And I mean, you're mentioning it could be bad. I mean, even if they're in this struggle, there is some people who manage to get the big part of the cake, so to speak, leaving others with a smaller one. I mean, ultimately, what you're saying is that maybe short-term success, but that will fire back. And thinking about your statement, I mean, is there a risk that one day we will see counterparties that are not bankable anymore because their balance sheet will weaken? So OEMs where the situation will not allow to do projects with them. Is there a risk that, do you see a tendency that maybe R&D spendings will be cut and technological process will slow down? What are your observations there?
Yeah, I can of course best see at our own situation, because it's very, very simple and easy to compare. We have the offshore business, where we clearly see growth, we see opportunities, we invest a lot into new factories and everything. But in onshore already, you ask yourself, I firmly believe onshore will have a healthy future, but without the growth, much smaller than in offshore. You have to more or less invest the same as in offshore, maybe slightly less, but a new generation of onshore machines costs you more or less the same. And if you then hang in there by the fingernails with a few low single-digit percentage points of profits, that is, of course, then maybe one day we come to the question, is this still worthwhile? At the moment, we try everything, but if you look at the OEMs, I think we're all in a very similar situation.
And I mean, if you do a classic analysis of a sector, and you would think about the level of competition on how sustainable you can secure your position as an industrial player, you'd always look at, well, is there growth? In our case, undoubtedly there is growth. You'd always look at, is it easy to enter that sector? So can competitors come in and copy you easily? I mean, it looks to me like in this case, it's a fairly complicated product. You've done it for many years. You own IP. So that per se looks like a good place to be.
Samuel, when you and I have retired, I think we can go to Harvard and make a case study of it, because as you say, all the fundamentals are right. We have growth. It's hard to get into the sector. It's a global business. Consolidation has taken place. So all the ingredients for a very competitive but still healthy sector are given. And I think everybody tries, of course, just like you. You are competing on the same level. You are also competing in auctions. And I can easily imagine you have very similar discussions like we have them amongst us. But nevertheless, if you look at the total results, you have all the analyst reports. It simply is very tight at the moment. And I think the only way out for us at the moment is innovation. More innovation, more cost out, something that you have started together with us in your previous life, which helped tremendously. But also I think there are other things that we need to overcome and need to become better at. So I'm not only complaining and saying it's bad. I think there are ways out of that. We just need to embark on them.
Yeah, in maybe less in wind, but very much in solar, as was one of the others established technology. People sometimes mention China and China's industrial policy in what is happening on the prices with the price level of hardware, and obviously playing a role for Western OEMs. What is if you look at wind and your company in particular, Siemens Gamesa Renewables, is China playing a role in all this, and the fact that there is Chinese OEM, to what degree does that influence or maybe deteriorate the situation further?
No, first, China plays in different ways a role, maybe not so direct as we all expected. So clearly, the Chinese, we use China as a supply chain market. We get a lot of components, very competitive, also very good quality from China, like for example, also from our licensed partner Shanghai Electric, and that works fine. That of course contributes to cost out, and also the Chinese component manufacturers have clearly learned so much the last 10 years. That this helps the situation, and I think that is very beneficial for the industry that we have that. The always open question is, of course, will the Chinese OEMs one day come to the rest of the world? When will they come? Will they find acceptance by our customers? And this is, I think, still an answer. And I do this now for 15 years, and we always believe, in 3-4 years they will be there. Until now, we have not seen them, and the only way out, and then I'm back to what we are good at in the West in general, is innovation. We simply have to continue and innovate, integrate the Chinese partners wherever possible, and I think then it could be a mutually beneficial situation.
And you describe now your own situation and the pressure and the dilemmas it creates for you as an OEM. You now bring into play also the supply chain. When we look at the sustainability of that supply chain, I mean, they probably, they're just the next one in the pyramid, so they get probably, the pressure from you and the heat from you and your company. So are they struggling on the same issues? And where is kind of, what's the weakest link? Where are we going to see first a massive derailer that could actually jeopardize the future of the industry?
Yeah, well, first you have seen it already, the consolidation under the OEMs, with my former company Senvion completely disappearing, others being very tight. Or look at offshore. About 5 years ago, there were 10, 12 people trying it. Only 3 have serious survivors, and the world market is divided under 3. So you clearly see already the effect that it had. I don't say it's an unhealthy result, and the same happens at the moment to our sub-suppliers. I think the other day I saw another insolvency. I think that company is insolvent for the 4th time. It's everybody tries, of course. And what do? Just like you, we diversify our supply chain to be resilient against such situations. Then you don't get to the volume. It takes more effort. In the end, it's the only way. And I think we need to get better in two ways. First, I think we need to get better amongst the OEMs. The example is always the automotive industry, that we cooperate better, that we don't reinvent every little crude thing like whatever transportation systems for towers. No difference. It's not a competitive advantage. It's just needed. We should do them together, and that's something, for example, that we do. I'm sure there's much more. And then the cooperation, I believe, with you guys. How can we benefit by cooperating rather than always negotiating and only have competition? I think that would be much more beneficial also, especially with all the digital things that we have now on your side as well on our side. How can we make sure that you maximize your benefit? There's also more to share than for them.
The last point here, and maybe just to summarize that situation, is one that I'm particularly interested in. I mean, you've given us massively improved technology over the last 10 years, and that has been one of the key drivers of, cost down and everything. One thing that, however, where I'm wondering whether we have learned anything is exactly then the way how we execute projects with whatever technology you're giving to us. So we get much better tools. But the way we execute projects, at least it strikes me that when I compare to, when I was 25 and today, it hasn't changed a lot. And people continue to say, let's work together in a more transparent way. We can eliminate basically friction or people, hiding risks and then basically accounting for these risks in their internal calculation, and the other one potentially doing the same. And there must be a lot of fat at the interfaces. So we keep saying it. Does it happen? And also, are we sufficiently improving productivity in executing projects? To me, it looks, frankly speaking, a bit like we're time and again, falling into the same.
Yeah. No, I can agree with you, Samuel, there. As long as we've been doing that with your companies or other companies, yes, we always say we need to get better at it. We need to cooperate. Let's have workshops, frame agreements, volume, scale. How can we benefit both from it? And in some cases, I think it worked very beneficial. And we found a solution, but it was not a generic solution that helped the whole industry. But it was mostly a solution for a certain pipeline, for a certain country, but never a fundamental one. And this is still, I think it's on us as well as on all the investors, all the developers to still find that. But I believe it's simply a hard fight. The developers are competing with each other for the next auction, the next CFD4 and everything. And that is also what makes it difficult. I think you had at least established a network because you normally, or in many cases, you invest with others, you farm down and so on. There's much more going on your side. But nevertheless, especially with new entrants coming into your part of the value chain, there will be even more competition. So I think there's still something we have to what is the magic bullet here?